Welcome to the show, guys. Anthony Wade here, and it's so good to be with you for another episode of the Lead 360 podcast. I am your host, Anthony Wade, and today what I want to share with you is something that I believe all leaders struggle with, including me. Have you ever been in a position or a title or a role in your life and you felt unqualified? And as a result, maybe lacked confidence? I can tell you that we've all been there, and chances are you might be there right now, whether you're at the bottom of the totem pole or you're an executive level leader. Here's the deal. It's easy to play the part. It's a different way of leading whenever you are being the part, meaning you are encompassing what it takes to embody the roles that you're fulfilling in life, whether that's as a parent, as a spouse, as a leader in an organization, as a business owner, or just leading out in the community, being a good steward. And I'll tell you that most people that I've come across that I've either spoken to or coached or trained, or that I've worked with as, from the bottom of the totem pole in the military to executive level leaders, I have found that we have all had this part or this time in our life where we lack the confidence and maybe even the competence to lead with conviction. And today what I want to share with you is something that has allowed me to fulfill roles that really I was unqualified for. That if you look on paper, if you looked at the track record, I was unqualified. I was not qualified to fulfill those roles. But here's what I know. God doesn't choose the qualified. He qualifies the chosen. And I want you to know that you are exactly where you need to be right now. Whether you feel like you're worthy, whether you feel like you're confident or not, you are exactly where you need to be. And I'll tell you why. Because if you weren't, then there is no room for growth. And so when you're in a position that's requiring you to stretch beyond your current reality, it's going to require these three things. I'm going to share them with you, but this is exactly how I've been able to have what the military calls sustained superior performance. And if you look at this in life, this is high performance. This is not just doing well at one job or well at one duty station or one organization. This is the ability to get to a high level, to play at a high level, and then sustain it over a long period of time. There's a lot of people out there who have been an overnight success, who have been a one-hit wonder. They've done good at a job, and then they go back to their, another position where they're given another role, and they flunk and they flop. I want you to be the person who understands that when you achieve this high performance mindset and this high performance standard, then you can go into any role, any organization, no matter what level, and crush it. You can go and understand that you bring you with you. And if you have the right framework, the right perspective, the right mindset, you can fulfill almost any role at the highest possible level and even outperform your peers. What does this mean? I want you to consider this. You must consistently raise your standard, because if you do not raise your standard, somebody else will set the standard for you. And chances are you will not be excited or happy about it. You see, most people today, they live up to the standards that are set for them by other people, whether that's your family, whether that's your friends, whether that's your boss, whether that's a coworker or an organization that you work for. You see, there's certain standards that are set in place, and they're there for the right reasons, sometimes give or take, right? But here's what I want you to understand. I don't want you to be the person who just meets the standard. I want you to consistently raise the standard. And when you do that, you render yourself an invaluable asset to any organization. And that goes in your marriage, that goes in your parenting, that goes in your personal or professional life. When you constantly raise your standard, you set the tone for everybody else. I have used this motto or this mindset over the last 19 years of my military career. And for a while, I believed that, maybe it was just because I had good leadership. And yes, I did. There were some places I had great leadership, and there were some places that I had horrible leadership. But one thing remained constant throughout my career and has allowed me to excel. And that is, I constantly raise the standard. Now, what does this mean? I raise the standard for myself. I set standards so high for myself that I often exceed expectations because my standards are higher than any standard anybody could put on me. The expectation for myself is higher than any expectation any other leader, any other organization could put on me or have for me. And you see, sometimes And for a long time, I only met the standards that were put on me from a past. And let me tell you, the standards and the expectations for me wasn't much. I wasn't expected to be, do, or have much in my life. That was just, if you looked at the proof, if you looked at the track record, Anthony wasn't supposed to be successful. I damn sure ain't supposed to be where I'm at today. But what changed? What allowed me to break that mold of mediocrity? It was simply raising my standard and continuing to raise my standard. And chances are you're there too. You're starting something new. Maybe you just joined the military, or you just joined an organization, or you just got out of the military and you're trying to find your way in the civilian sector. Or you have found yourself in a new role, a new position. Maybe you're a new parent. You just had a baby, or you just became a parent. You just got married. Whatever roles that you're fulfilling in life, they're going to require a new version of you. The problem with most people is they want to keep their old habits, beliefs, and bullshit. And I want you to understand this. When you raise the standard for yourself, you set the expectations for other people. You don't let them set expectations for you. And when you do this, it's so freeing. It allows you to flourish. And instead of playing the game, you're changing the game. Does that make sense? And so I want you to understand this. I'm going to give you 3 ways to do this, and 3 ways that I've been able to do this. Because for a long time, I was humble and I would say, oh, just doing my job. And I realized that, okay, if I'm just doing my job, then why am I seeing 10x results everywhere I go? There's got to be something different. And for a long time, I didn't want to think this. There was something different about me. But now I realized that, yes, when I'm intentional, now I realize that it's simply this. I raised my standard. I looked at what the standard was in the culture of the organization. What is the standard that they have? And then how can I crush that? How can I exceed that standard? How can I create standards that are higher than that? And it's very easy to do today, guys. Like, if you look at where you are right now, look at where we are in the world. Mediocrity and average is the standard. And I don't want you to go another day just doing what's required. I want you to exceed what's required. And it's so easy to do. It's just doing what you're supposed to and then a little bit more. What would happen if you did what you were supposed to in your marriage and then just did a little more? What if you just did what was required as a parent and then just did a little more without the expectation of receiving anything, but to give? Because there's a good book called The Go Giver, and he talks about this. When you give, you will receive. And when you receive, it's going to be 10x, than you could ever imagine. But most people are in this scarcity mindset that I'm only going to do this if this, then that. If they do this, then I'll do that. You understand this? Leaders go first. Write this down. Leaders go first. And what I found is that whenever you set the standard and you raise your standard, you allow others to follow because they want to, not because they have to. The problem that we see more now than ever is there's such a low standard and people are following it, but not you. If you're listening to this show, whether you're on YouTube or listen to the podcast, I want you to understand this. Ask yourself this question. Where in my life do I need to raise my standard? And when you look at the areas of your life, look at the roles that you fulfill, personal and professional, as a parent, as a spouse, as a leader in an organization, wherever you are in your health, your wealth, your relationships, where do you need to raise your standard? Okay. And so how do we do this, right? There's 3 things that I want you to consider when it comes to raising your standard. Number 1 is vision. Okay. In order to raise your standard, we must have a vision that's bigger than our current circumstances, that's bigger than our current reality. Because most people say, well, I got to see it to believe it. Well, here's how you see it before you can believe it. You have to see it in your mind, because everything's created twice. First in your mind and then in reality. I got an iPhone right here, right? This was a thought in somebody's brain. Okay. Steve Jobs had an idea. It started in his mind and then it became a reality, right? This plastic bottle, somebody had an idea. What if we can make clean water and put it in bottles and then sell it to the world so that they could have Alpine Spring water? And then here it is. The same thing goes for you and I. When you get clear on what it is that you want, what you must do, and most importantly, who do you need to become, it's interesting how the world conspires to your good. The world is always conspiring for the greater good for you. The problem is that we get washed up in all the currents of life, all the negative stuff. We're getting fed all these things that are igniting our fears instead of fueling our faith. And I want you to think about this. When you get a clear vision of what you want that's outside of your current circumstance, you begin to walk by faith. You begin to have a greater sense of excitement. When I was training for the Ironman, I told my coaching group, I always had this vision of me crossing the finish line and seeing my family, smelling the ocean water because we're running on the ocean. I knew what it felt like. I knew what it smelled like. I knew what it tastes like. I knew what it was going to look like. And one of my good friends captured this moment with my son of me high-fiving my son. My wife was in the background. My mom was in the background cheering me on. And I was giving my son a high five coming through the finish line. He said, dude, I remember you telling me that that was the vision that you held in your mind when you were training 8 months ago. He's like, and I snapped that picture at the right moment. And that was your vision coming to life. You know, it wasn't fun biking 40, 50, 60 miles, running 20, 30 miles at a time. That wasn't fun for me. But what was exciting, what kept my head in the game was having that vision of what it was going to look like, crossing the finish line, and having my family there to witness it. I had an emotional attachment to it. I'd get choked up and teared up because that was a sense of pride for me. It was going to that finish line and seeing my family there to watch me go through it. And it kept me in the game. But you see, what if we could take that example and apply it to our wealth? What if we can apply that to our marriages? What if we can apply that to our health? And break away from all the limitations that we have in our life right now, because we all do. I mean, you, me, everybody, we all have these limitations. And our biggest limitation is right between our ears. And so a vision is the first starting point of raising your standard. What does your best self look like? How would he or she show up as a leader, as a parent, as a spouse, as a whatever role you fulfill? You see, vision without action is worthless. Action without vision is reckless. So once you have that vision, you have to start thinking about taking action towards that vision. Most people today just take action aimlessly and they get mediocre results. Action without vision is reckless. And we find ourselves running around in circles, never really getting results. So once you have a vision of what your future self must be in order to do the things to have what you want, then you reverse engineer it to the now and say, okay, if that's what he or she looks like, that's what they act like, that's what they're being, then how do I look at myself today and get grounded in reality and find out where are these gaps in my life? Oh, that person is 20 pounds lighter and they got a six-pack, or they eat healthy. Well, let me look at what I ate today. Oh, I had cereal and I had a bunch of crap. Well, am I acting in alignment with who I want to be? The answer is no. Then guess what? Now you know what you need to fix. How would my best self show up in my marriage? Am I communicating? Am I loving unconditionally? Am I being the person? And if not, then reverse engineer it. Okay, what do I need to change about me? You see, Simon Sinek wrote a good book, Start With Why, but I have to say it has to start with I. What do I need to do? Who do I need to be? What do I need to change so that my world, my vision can change, and therefore things around me begin to change? You see, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at begin to change. And when we change our vision for our life, from our current reality and circumstance to our future self, things begin to change. Our life becomes more predictable. We are given a clear-cut path to what we need to do, and there's no more guessing. What would your life be if it was more predictable? What would it look like if you didn't have to guess at what you needed to do every day? It sounds boring, I know, but success isn't always sexy. It's the mundane, it's the repetitive things that are happening over and over again to get the results. But once you get the results, guess what? Maintaining it is easy. But most people don't want to do the work. They don't want it. They say, well, it's got to be harder than that. You see, we make things so difficult to the point where we can't get started because it just gets too hard. I'll tell you that it's so simple. You know, going back to that Ironman analogy, I had to do 3 things: swim, bike, and run. That's it, 3 things: swim, bike, and run. You know how hard it was? Because there's got to be more. There's got to be more. And there really wasn't. It was very simple. So my second question is, where are you complicating things? Where are you complicating things in your life? So number 1, where do I need to raise my standard? Number 2, where am I making things more difficult than they need to be? Where am I complicating things? So number 1, you have to have a vision, right? Get clear on that vision. What does he or she do? What do they have? And who do they need to be? And when you have that vision, now you got to ask yourself, what are my core values? Number 2, what are my core values? What does that person value? If I was to follow you for a day, would I be able to look at your life and tell you what you value? Right? When people look at my life, they know Anthony values health. Anthony values his family. He values leadership. He values impacting and influencing people. He values adding value to others. But you see, I couldn't do that until I valued myself. Remember this, you cannot give what you do not have. And when you see the value that you have as an individual, your gifts, talents, and abilities, only then can you share your unique value with the world. Only then can you add value to other people. And if more people would understand this simple concept, you cannot give what you do not have. And if you're going to add value to people, you must first value yourself. If more people understood just that simple line, then they would understand that they have to love themselves before they can love other people. And I'm not saying falling in love and romantic love. I'm talking about loving people so much so that you would give them the shirt off your back. You would give your life so that others may live. That's a selfless way to be. But the unfortunate thing is most people are selfish today. They want it, what's in it for me. And I'll tell you, sometimes leadership is often a lonely ship because you give, and sometimes you don't receive until you do. And when you do, it's amazing, right? But I want you to understand, what are your core values? What do you value right now in your life? And what do you need to stop valuing? See, most people value the opinions of other people. Most people value the criticism and judgment of other people over their truth. They allow what other people say or do become their truth. And so what do you value right now? What do you say you value, and what do you truly value? Because if you value people, for a long time, I said, I value leadership. I value adding value to people. And as soon as somebody would make a comment that I didn't like, or they would say something to validate how I felt about myself, guess what happened? I'd shut up. I wouldn't do it no more. I wouldn't go out there and do a video. I wouldn't go out there and do a post. Oh, you're trying to be motivational? Oh, who do you think you are? Tony Robbins? Like, no, I'm Anthony Waite. But they would justify that little voice in my head that says, who do you think you are? And so I would like a clam, I would close up and shell in my shell, and I wouldn't say anything. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not good. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should just shut up. And I had to realize that if I'm going to value people, if I'm going to value leadership, if I'm going to live out these core values of service, right, of helping other people, of serving other people, then I got to stop valuing the opinions of others, the naysayers. And so the third question is, what do you value? And if I walked around with you for a day, could I tell what you value? Here's a way to do this, right? If you want to do a quick exercise, find 5 people in your life, people that you live with, people that you lead, people that you love, and ask them to describe you in one word. They're going to say things like disciplined. They're going to say motivated. They're going to say lazy. They're going to say incompetent. They're going to say, confident. They're going to say, character, whatever. Have them write those words down. And I want you to look at that list of words, and I want you to look at what you say you value, and I want you to compare the notes and find any incongruency that you can. So if you say, I'm disciplined, I value exercise, I value health, and then somebody says, oh, well, you're overweight. Well, you see the incongruency? I value my family, but your wife put, oh, you work too much, workaholic. You see the incongruency? And so that will give you a roadmap on how to start working on creating your core values. And now the last part is, once you identified your vision, you have your core values that align with that vision. Now you have to start thinking about the virtues. What habits, behaviors do I need to encompass so that I can live out those core values? You see, you shouldn't have to tell people what you value. They should look at you and be able to tell what your core values are. When people look at my life, they go through my social media, they can tell me, you value leadership, you value exercise, you value fitness, you value the military, you value leading people, you value speaking and coaching and training people, you value, and you see, I don't have to sit there and explain to people what's important to me because I'm living it out every single day. I want you to do the same. And whenever you do this, you have no choice but to raise your standard. And now instead of following an example, you're becoming the example. And it's not going to happen overnight, but it will happen over time. And once you have this, your influence and impact will be felt, not just in your current circle of influence, but it will have a ripple effect throughout your life. And when you raise your standard, your life becomes more predictable. You realize that you take you wherever you go. And everywhere you go, you're not starting over. You're starting from a building from a higher level of awareness. And when you raise your standard, here's the other thing. No longer are you handcuffed by the BS. You go to an organization and everybody's talking about how bad it is and how much it sucks and how much this and how much that, all the things that they cannot control. And you on the other hand, understand that there might not be things I can control out there. I might not be able to control it, but I can't control me. I can continue to raise my standard. I can continue to be the example. I can continue to set the standard. And when you do that, you become what Seth Godin talked about when he created a book called Linchpin. You become irreplaceable. You understand your value and your self-worth, and you understand that you take you with you, and then you start demanding your price. You start demanding your worth. And if you don't get it, guess what? You can go somewhere else and you can find it. You can find somebody else who will see in you what you see in you. You see, if you don't know what you bring to the table, you will always be on the menu. You can write that down. If you don't know what you bring to the table, you will always be on the menu. And when you understand this and you raise your standard, you walk into any meeting, no matter what your rank, title, or position is, and people will respect you. Why? Because you respect you. They will have confidence in you because you have confidence. They will trust you because you trust you. And so remember this, we train people how to treat us. And the way they treat us is a direct reflection of how we treat us. Whenever you allow yourself to talk down to you, to the negative self-talk, it's a wonder why you let other people talk down to you, right? When you treat yourself like crap, other people will treat you like crap. But when you raise your standard and you take care of yourself, your mind, body, and spirit, you carry yourself a certain way, you will find that people don't often come to you with the BS, and they have a respect. There's a difference between commanding respect and demanding respect. When you raise your standard, you command respect based on who you are. But when you have to demand respect, that means that you are not being the standard, that you need to raise your standard, because I don't have to go anywhere and demand respect. I get it because of who I am, because of the way that I treat myself. And as a way that I treat myself, I train others how to treat me. And your standard is simply this, what you will and will not tolerate. So where in your life have you been tolerating things up until now? Where in your life do you need to stop tolerating things? And what do you need to start doing so that you can be the example of what you will and will not tolerate? Because in life, you don't get what you want. We get what we tolerate. And no longer do I want you to tolerate just plain mediocre. I don't want you to tolerate average. I want you to raise the standard so that you can have this sustained superior performance. You do this, and you will find the doors will open up that would otherwise been closed. Opportunities will reveal themselves. Not because they just showed up out of nowhere. It's because they've always been there, but you have yet to see them because you have not become aware of the possibility that lies within you. But as soon as you become aware of your potential, you realize that there's so many more opportunities in your current circumstances. But remember, it requires three things: a vision, your core values, and your virtues. You get clear on those three things, and that will open the door to possibility. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I hope you subscribe to the channel. I want you to comment below, what is one thing that you need to stop tolerating in your life so that you can go up? The law of sacrifice, we must give up to go up. What do you need to start giving up so that you can go up? I'll see you on the next episode.